This is live from my office, and it's a pleasure to welcome a friend from the past and a friend in the present, and one of my favorite writers, who's now a big shot sports gambling guru. He's got a great new book out. We're going to talk to him about that in just a second. But first, hello to a former Chicago Tribune legend. I guess once you're a legend, you're always a legend. Teddy Greenstein's here. Teddy.
Steve, how you doing, buddy? I'd rather we be doing this like on the first tee or the 19th hole, but short of that, I am thrilled to be talking with you today.
Well, it's great talking to you. And you did one of the smartest things I've seen. Of all the great writers who have had to abandon newspapers, and you left the Chicago Tribune after a tremendous run, you got into the world of sports gambling at exactly the right time as a senior editor of PointsBet. I hope you're having fun doing it.
I'm having a blast. Like when people ask me, hey, was it a tough decision to leave the Trib? I'm like, it was the easiest decision in the history of mankind. So we're talking like October 2020. I've been at the Tribune then for 24 and a half years. Like a lot of the fun stuff is going away. A lot of the, trips. I had covered 11 Masters. I was worried they were going to take that away because, if there was no specific local angle, they were going to say, cool, we'll just take the AP wires. And then you add the pandemic. So sports writing after that became dreadful. Everything on Zoom, the fun part of the job, getting to know people, really diving in and writing features. That was taken away. So PointsBet comes around and they say, while I was still at the Tribune, they say, hey, do you want to do a story on Devin Hester? He's becoming the Illinois face of PointsBet. I said, absolutely. So I write the story, get to know the CEO and the PR guys. They offer me the gig, and easiest decision of all time. I do a lot of content stuff, so a lot of stuff on social media. I write scripts for Page. I appear on Golf Channel. I edit and write our newsletter.
Well, you're great on camera. In the world of tiny screens, it's great, but you're great on camera, so you've become one of the go-to guys, period, for this.
I'm trying. Here's the thing, man. It's all second nature to me. So, I was the guy, Steve, in high school who was running our NFL pool. So everybody was, I think it was $5, and then I would Xerox the thing, and everybody had their picks against the spread. So I've been into point spread since I was about 15 or 16, and then at the Trib, I was the guy picking every Big Ten football game against the spread. So, when this opportunity came around, it's not like they're saying, hey, do you want to sell cars? It's like, well, I don't know anything about rack and pinion steering. No, I know stuff about point spread, so It's a natural.
Yeah, and the expansion of this has been exponential. It's not going away anytime soon. PointsBet does a nice job with it, too, so check it out. Now, you mentioned Paige. Paige is Paige Spiranak, who is an absolute rock star and a hell of a golfer, by the way, still. But you got a celebrity group there of endorsers that I assume you're having fun working with those folks, right? Did you write anything negative about somebody you now have to work with?
You know what? That popped up a little bit in the book potentially because I've been a little tough on Jim Harbaugh. So I was thinking about hollering at Jim for quarterback dad since he was a quarterback and his dad John, and he would have been interesting, but didn't run into that too much. No, I would never write anything critical about Paige because she's got 3.2 million loyal followers, man. I don't need those pitchforks in my life.
Yeah, to have someone, and this is not about Paige, but Teddy's used to talking about her. But to have somebody who is that beautiful, who has that kind of success, and can back it up with writing and performing, good for her. I mean, I think she's got a heck of a career that she's already carved out. Who knows what she'll do from here?
This woman shot like 64 in competition. She hits it like an LPGA Tour player. I've seen it myself. She bombs it out there like 260. Her problem, as she would say, is that she would lose her mind on the golf course. She would make a bogey or double bogey and just not be able to handle it. And that's one of the ways where all these guys and women who get paid to play golf, man, they shake it off. They move on. Like Tony Finau, he's been struggling forever, and then he starts, firing up 63s over the weekend. And she didn't have that ability, but she's got a lot of abilities, man. There are a lot of beautiful women on Instagram. None of them have over 3 million followers like she does. So I refer to her. She's our first ballot social media Hall of Famer.
Well, she's got game, literally, in business now too. So like I said, good for her. But it's a perfect segue in talking about golf and getting into your book, Quarterback Dads. The Little League parent thing is one thing, but taking it to the level of being so focused and so selfish in some ways that you become a quarterback dad on the bad side. Well, there's good ones too. And I love this concept for your book. Quarterback Dads talks about the quarterback dads we know that groom their kid forcibly or non to become NFL names you would know. And I guess you got to start with Todd Marinovich and Marv, right?
Yeah. So for people of a certain age, including you and me, I literally remember reading the Sports Illustrated story, the Robo Quarterback.
Yep.
And so Todd Marinovich had this dad named Marv, and Marv was, kind of a personal trainer type, former football player. And he decided at birth, or actually before, that his kid was going to be an NFL quarterback. So he assembled a team of scientists, and Todd was the kid who was taking his own specialized birthday cake to birthday parties. And when Todd was in the crib, the dad was stretching out his hamstrings, and he was like making him eat liver, and every single thing in Todd's life revolved around making him a top quarterback. In some ways it worked. He was an amazing, lefty quarterback at USC, got drafted by the Raiders, but flamed out, drug addiction, was robbed of a childhood, and is still really kind of an incomplete guy. Steve, when I decided to do the book, there were top two targets. One, Archie Manning, like the ultimate quarterback dad.
Yep.
And then I wanted to get Todd Marinovich, who really was victimized by the worst ever quarterback dad. What's interesting about Todd is he has a son named Barron. Guess what Barron wants to do? He wants to play quarterback, and Todd is totally conflicted on this.
Well, I understand why you'd be conflicted, but you also have that, and pardon the analogy, I suppose, but if you grew up in a family of alcoholics, you have a choice to become an alcoholic and continue the train, or to go in a different direction and to raise your kids in a different way. He has that as well, but maybe he doesn't have the tools to pull it off.
Well, what do you do? So he's got a kid, and Todd is saying, great, go play tennis, go play golf. The kid says, I want to play quarterback. Todd says, why don't you play receiver? Why don't we try touch football? Why don't we do anything, to keep you out of harm's way? And the kid wants to be a quarterback. So then at that point, you say, all right, I'm going to work with him and teach him everything I know, because, of course, if you're Todd Marinovich's kid, you're going to have great fundamentals. You're going to have access to good training, et cetera, et cetera. Or what do you do as a parent? And I mean, that's what a lot of parents are dealing with. Your kid wants to play video games and you want him to go outside and play tag. It's that thing we're all dealing with. My kids are 13 and 10. They're avid soccer players. And I say every minute they're doing soccer, they're not on TikTok. So that's a win. Yeah.
Well, any sort of physical activity, there's no downside to that. But my hope for Todd Marinovich is that he's happy with the rest of his own life, and that he can figure out how to be the dad that he didn't have. And it sounds like he's trying to get that done from your time with him, huh?
He really is. So Todd was never allowed to have fast food. So, of course, everybody was fascinated by this, a kid who could never have a Big Mac or a Coke or a Ding Dong or whatever. So everybody always asked Todd, what does Barron eat? And he said, well, we really are still healthy eaters, but I make one exception for fast food, and that is In-N-Out. And I'm like, much respect. If you live in somewhere where there's In-N-Out burger, that would be the exception.
Yeah, no, it's going to church, fast food church. Now, you already mentioned the guy that's on the other end of this, and that's Archie Manning. It's Eli and Peyton, and the brother that couldn't play only because he was hurt, that Archie swears would have been better than both of them. Why was Archie so grounded and so good at this? Because he comes from a generation that wasn't necessarily the great dad generation.
That's right. Well, and Archie's own dad was really troubled and actually took his own life. But Archie says great stuff to say about his own father, who was very supportive. What's fascinating to me about Archie is that he's got three boys, and they all have completely different personalities. So Cooper's the oldest, and he was just a total cut-up. Really, really good athlete, good wide receiver. And then exactly, he had to quit playing because of stenosis. It would have been too high the injury risk. Then you got Peyton. And Peyton is the most intense kid you've ever come across. So he's the one who's going to Little League games and yelling at his teammates, you need to take more infield practice, and you need to get into the cage. And Archie is saying, would you just relax? Some kids just want to show up. And Peyton's watching film, and Peyton's obsessed with football, and Archie's the one telling him, could you go outside and see? could you go to a movie? Could you get a girlfriend? So, like, it's the opposite of most relationships where you're pushing your kid to do something. He was trying to hold him back. And then in Eli's case, Eli didn't talk. Like, he barely said a word until he was 6 or 7, didn't want anything to do with his own recruiting. So, Archie really worked to develop a one-on-one relationship there, spent a lot of time with Eli, and look what he became. Also a Super Bowl MVP, and now comfortable enough to speak on those Monday Night Football telecasts.
Yeah, now, here's the thing with Archie, and tell me what you found with this, because the one knock on Archie was he was a draft manipulator, and he was more involved than he wanted us to think he was. What'd you find out about that?
Well, that's true. I mean, it's funny, people do give him the benefit of the doubt because he's such a, kindly guy, and he's low-key. I mean, I've asked him if he wanted to do some interviews related to the book, and he always politely replies, "Oh, no, thanks. We're staying low key here." I mean, even with Arch Manning, so his grandson, who is Cooper's son, is the number 1 quarterback in the junior class.
Right.
And Archie was thrilled that Arch didn't have a Twitter page until recently, so that's how they are. But it's true when you come right down to it. Like, Eli, refused to go to the first team that took him. I think San Diego ended up with the Giants, and they don't take a lot of hits for it. Like, I think John Elway still takes more hits for manipulating his draft status as number 1.
Right. In between that, you've got an awful lot of names, Tell me about Warren Moon. Again, we're talking with Teddy Greenstein, the book's Quarterback Dads, with Donovan Dooley, and this is the Father's Day gift you're going to want to get for yourself or for your dad, and your mom will like it too. But give me the Warren Moon story.
Yeah, man. So Warren Moon is cool. He came up in this respect. So there's a kid in Crystal Lake, and his name is Trey Taylor. His dad is JR. JR was a successful running back at Eastern Illinois. So Trey Taylor is adorable. He's like a mini Patrick Mahomes. He's already been offered by the University of Maryland, and he's in the 7th grade. He wakes up at 5 in the morning. He does yoga. He eats a breakfast of grilled chicken and oranges, and is the sweetest kid. So I asked Trey, I said, give me a list of your favorite quarterbacks. And number 1 was Warren Moon, which was fascinating because, I mean, Warren Moon hasn't played in forever, right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
This guy was a pioneer. I mean, he played at University of Washington, didn't have much success. Then he had to go to Canada. Like, the NFL had no interest in him.
Right.
So he goes to Canada and is wildly successful for 3 or 4 years. Finally, the NFL adds him, and he has this glorious, 15-year career. But it was cool. Like, this kid did a project on him, and Warren Moon had a bunch of sisters, and there's just some interesting things in his life. So I ended up reaching out to Warren, and, he had great advice for the kid. Warren himself is not actually a quarterback dad. Like, he had kids who played college football, but they are receivers, and that was intentional. Like, Warren Moon did not want a kid jogging out there wearing number 12 and having Moon, on the back of his jersey. He thought it would be too much. Kind of like Kurt Warner, who has a huge role in this book. Kurt Warner has a son named EJ, and man, it's the best and worst. If you're in Arizona as a high school quarterback with Warner on your back, that's a lot of pressure.
Sure.
But your dad is Kurt Warner, and he can teach you every single thing you need to know about playing quarterback.
I know you talk to coaches too, and in particular, Teddy and I are in the Chicago area, and you have great relationships with Pat Fitzgerald at Northwestern, and the head coach at Illinois, formerly at Wisconsin, Brett Bielema. And what are they saying about this relationship? And I'm sure they have some nightmares of dads that wanted to get in the way, even at the college level.
It's a great question. So one of the things that I talked to Fitz about, I said, do you have any nightmare quarterback dads in your program? He said, never. I said, well, why? He goes, well, we weed them out. So freshman or sophomore kids in high school, Fitz starts to get to work at it. And he actually will sort of interview the dads and say, hey, what type of quarterback dad do you think you are? And Fitz says, he gets a range of answers that leads him to say, ooh, this rascal's going to be a handful. Because if it's a quarterback dad who has a freshman and that dad is, say, obsessed with statistics or obsessed with social media or railing on his offensive coordinator, what do you think that dad is going to be like 4 years later if his kid is at Northwestern and his kid is not playing or his kid is not, getting enough pass attempts? So basically, Fitz just weeds out the quarterback.
It's interesting. So the dad becomes part of the recruiting.
100%. And you look, I think all, programs do this to some extent. Like, if you are a crazy dad, they're going to judge you on a scale. Like, I'll give you one. So the starting quarterback at Clemson is DJ Uiagalelei, and his dad is Big Dave. And there's a chapter on this book about Big Dave. Big Dave is a bodyguard, 350-pound guy, has protected a lot of Hollywood celebs. As a quarterback dad, Big Dave is nuts. He's obsessed. He has on Twitter what he calls Big Dave's blueprint. He tweets about his kid so much that the older kid, DJ, blocks him on Twitter. That's probably a bad sign if your own son is blocking you on Twitter.
Yeah, that's not great. Might be time for a sit down.
Exactly. It might be time to ratchet it down a little bit.
Yeah.
So that was lesson. One thing from Brett Bielema that I thought was really interesting. He says young quarterbacks, one thing you should do, work on your communication skills, even work on your acting skills. So if you are maybe a 7th or 8th grader and an aspiring quarterback, take a drama class. That was something he said that surprised me that I thought was pretty cool.
That is cool, but it makes sense too, because if you're a quarterback, you better be an actor in the huddle, because when things get tough, you got to be the guy.
You have to sell them. You have to, express confidence, and you have to let them know this play is going to work. You're going to block my blind side. You're going to get open. Exactly. You have to be convincing. That's one of the dozens of things that goes into being a successful quarterback.
The book's called Quarterback Dads. Is there, from talking to all these folks, is there a separation point, a fork in the road that was similar across the board where you saw, well, this is where it could have gone this way or that way, or are they all sort of individual a la carte stories?
I'd say individual a la carte. One thing we talk about in the book a lot, Steve, is specialization. And this is something that all dads are wondering. Same with like my soccer dad. Should your kids play multiple sports? And the simple answer to that is yes. So not only do these guys say your kid should maybe play baseball, maybe run track, maybe play basketball. If he's a baseball player, it's good if he's a pitcher, but it's better if he's a middle infielder. Because when we watch Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and all these brilliant quarterbacks throw passes, they're having to do it from different angles. So if you can practice those double plays from second base or shortstop,
sure,
from those odd angles, that's going to help you as a quarterback.
There is a fraction of a percent of kids that will ever grow up and be professional athletes. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of parents. And by the way, it's not just dads, it's moms as well, who are obnoxious, over the top, and ruin it for kids. I coach my kids, all the way through school. And my first speech every year, whether it was baseball or football or even golf with helping out with youth programs, I'd always say the same thing. I go, 2 things. 1, they're here to learn the game. 2, they're here to have fun. And 3, it's not about you.
Exactly.
And too many parents don't get that. I assume that's a theme that probably was just shouting from the book, right?
Yeah. So one example from the book, and then I'll give one from my own soccer experience. There's a kid everybody's going to be hearing about. His name is Bryce Underwood. He is a freshman in Michigan, has already led his school to a state title at Ford Field. His dad's awesome. His dad is Jay Underwood, but he can't let go. So he should just be, watching the games and enjoying them, but he's a volunteer coach on the high school team because he says they need him to help with special teams. And when the kid comes off the field after throwing an interception, the kid doesn't know if he should talk to his quarterback coach or if he should talk to his dad.
Yeah, the worst.
Not good. Not good. Stay in the bleachers and watch your kid perform. And when I go to these soccer tournaments, because my kids play travel soccer, there's this one mom, and granted, she knows soccer pretty well because she played in college, but she is screaming, form a wall,
right.
Mark up. But it's like, you're not the coach.
Right.
You're the parent.
Right.
I mean, I try to keep my comments just totally positive. And look, every once in a while, we're all shouting offsides or handball. It's hard not to. But I'm not the form a wall guy. They already know that.
Well, and also, you have every right to talk to your kid about how things went or didn't go, and hopefully you're listening more than you're talking on the ride home.
That's right.
And on the ride to the next game. But you're not the coach. And if you want to be the coach, become the coach. But don't ruin it for your kid.
Steve, I probably should have named a chapter "The Ride Home" because it's such a thing. And I've experienced it where in the earlier days when the kids were playing soccer, I would start by asking an open-ended question. How do you think the game went? And sometimes their perception was 180 degrees wrong.
Right.
So I've gotten better at this, and the smart dads are also like this. Don't bring it up unless your kid brings it up. Talk about getting ice cream. Talk about anything but the game. Right. And then if your kid wants to talk about it, he or she will.
Right. Quarterback Dads is a book. Now, let me get off it for a second. A couple other sports examples and people we all know well. Earl Woods is constantly slammed being a classic bad dad. And kids have perceptions of their parents that the public doesn't. Tiger Woods would tell you that he was a wonderful father. He clearly has emotional ties to him, healthy and maybe unhealthy, that are none of our business. But he's not Tiger Woods without Earl Woods. So, ballpark, good dad, bad dad, we don't know.
I mean, somewhere in between. Tiger Woods is not a fully formed human. If people watch the 30 for 30 or actually it was on HBO, the specials about him, and I have stories too from having covered him. He has a lot of weird stuff about him that, some stuff that makes him odd socially and whatever. He doesn't tip people. He doesn't particularly treat people well. His dad basically told him, like, win the golf tournament, show up at a course, ask what the course record is, ask where the first tee is, and then just beat everybody's ass.
Yeah.
And he did turn him into an incredible golfer, and now at least Tiger seems to be a good father. But look, I mean, the way everything went down with his marriage, like, that wasn't cool. That really wasn't good.
No, and it's what you said. It's the lack of being a fully formed human being because his singular focus was golf, and that's not an exaggeration. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right,
and
so
look,
what about
mom,
Richard? Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, and his mom, she was the ultimate Tiger mom. She was the one saying step on their throats. So he emphasized golf over everything, and she emphasized competitiveness. Now, he did go to Stanford. I mean, so there's a lot of, you can interpret the Tiger Dad stuff in a lot of ways.
What about Richard Williams?
So next on my list is to watch King Richard, and I can't believe I haven't watched it yet. So come back to me after I watch that. Well, until then, I only know from afar.
Yeah, well, we'll smack you if you don't watch it.
Yeah, that's right.
But here's the thing about that movie. That movie is a love story to Richard Williams, and it doesn't tell the full story of what we know factually. And that was he was an angry guy and not a great guy at home. He created 2 winners. His daughters love him, and they respect him. But it doesn't appear to be the classic healthy relationship. And I guess my point to all of this, and it would go to Michelle Wee's parents, and other folks as well, is you don't know what type of person your kid's going to turn into, and the passion you have for the game, whatever that game is, may not turn out to be their passion. And you got to be ready to accept that. And when you don't just ruin the relationship with the sport, you ruin the relationship with them.
Yeah, these are all tricky. And look, like even the quarterback dads in the book that I'm somewhat critical of, I'm also quick to point out, like, we have such a problem in our society with absentee dads. These are the opposite of absentee dads.
That's right.
So, like, I've got a dad in Detroit, and he's overly obsessed with his kid, and the kid does quarterback training and speed training almost every day, and he wears a fake arm tattoo sleeve to games, and he has his own customized cleats, and he's 7 years old.
Yeah, come on.
However, the dad works the overnight shift at Ford, so he can wake up with his kid and take him to school and take him to quarterback training. And yes, it's too much, but it beats the alternative. So it's like, these dads, you can't really, like Marv Marinovich, bad dad, even though the kid still made the NFL. But for the other ones, there's some shade in between.
And there's really, you tell me, but there's really no way to say, here's my advice based on what I know from the book, is there? Because it's such an individualized thing, other than the fact that the love of your kid should supersede the love of the game.
I'd say there's one overriding theme, and I got to say, like, people who've already read the book, who've read it quickly, have given us some testimonials. Steve, it's been really gratifying. These dads who say, like, I am going to change my ways. And the one overriding theme is this: you must form an individual relationship with your child. And that's why the Manning chapter is so important, because they all have to be treated differently. Because one of them, you got to kick in the ass. The other one, you got to hold them back. Another one, you encourage them to play more sports. Another one, fewer sports. Maybe one wants to play the piano. Like, it's not a one size fits all. So Pat Fitzgerald talked about this. Have an individual relationship with your kid, and that way you'll know what's required.
Lou Piniella was a pal for years when he was in Chicago managing the Cubs. He had the greatest take on it. He said, Steve, I'm an elementary school teacher. He said some of these guys need an ass kicking, others need a hug, others need to be treated special because they are special, others need to be frankly ignored. And he said you got to figure all that out every single day. And then Lou would go out to a press conference and pretend he didn't know what a hit and run was because he could go home earlier.
Brilliant move. Whereas Joe Madden was so great with us, we keep him for 35 minutes for every single game.
Right.
Especially, even with my kids, like one has probably the potential to play college soccer, and the other is just going to have a good high school career. So guess what? If the high school player wants to blow off 6:30 a.m. practice when it's 38 degrees outside and she's been doing well academically, go ahead and blow off practice. Yep. But the other one's going to go.
Yeah, and I think you hit on a real core point that's important too for parents to remember, and that is you can only do this for so long. And sports and teams and friends you make and relationships you have, those are memories you're going to have for a lifetime. So support that for as long as you can, and as long as they really want to do it, because it's not going to last.
Donovan Dooley, his entire motivation. So he's the trainer I worked with here, and he's from Detroit. He had the great quarterback dad story. His entire motivation for doing this book was to get the message to dads, chill the bleep out.
Yeah.
Because he just sees too much of it. I mean, he's been there, Steve, when a dad says to a kid, you complete this next pass or you're not having dinner. It's like, bro, that's what's wrong with you? So generally speaking, dads need to dial it down. But there are exceptions, and you can't say, oh, you shouldn't do anything on social media, because social media is a way for kids, especially from lesser-known areas, to get attention from coaches and to get invited to camps, and all that stuff is important.
Yeah, it's crazy now, right? I mean, along with the individual coach and the speed camps and the arm camps and your sizzle reel that you have to have up, it's all of that. When I played football, Teddy, you remember you covered me. They used to have the bird come in and they'd chip out my notes on stone, and then they'd fly it over to Bedrock, and Fred and Barney would take a look. That's how long ago it was.
I mean, Crazy Legs Cochran. I mean, you had some speed to the outside. I mean, nobody can deny your 4.9 40 time.
It was actually a 4.9 20. That's the problem. So, from Marv Marinovich to Archie Manning and back, I love this concept. And by the way, I don't put any pressure on you, but this feels like a TV series to me.
If you want to help make that happen, let's do it. I am talking, no, for real. I mean, I'm talking to TV partners about that. To me, like, look, we've seen QB1. There was a series called Friday Night Tykes.
Yeah.
You've got these dads. These are fascinating dads. They are attention hungry. They've got their kids. They're all around the country. And they're incredible characters. So I would love to bring this to life with a streaming series. And
imagine being able to do it and actually do some good. How crazy would that be?
Exactly. Right. Dads see this and they say, okay, I don't want to be that one. I want to be that one, and then improve how they are as a father.
Yeah. You want a relationship with your kid when they're Archie Manning and Peyton Manning's age, not when they're 20 or 25 or whatever the case may be. Best of your family, my friend. And if you haven't already set up your account on PointsBet, go do it now, and have some fun with that. And I hope you'll come back so we can talk a little sports gambling at some point.
I would love to do that. By the way, if I could get in just a cheap plug here, if anybody wants to buy a signed copy, just direct message me on Twitter at Teddy Greenstein. We have a website, QBDads.com, which also has gear, so it's really good for Mother's Day, Father's Day, all that. QBDads.com. But if you want a signed copy, or if you want to sign up for PointsBet, direct message me at Teddy Greenstein, and I will take care of you one way or the other.
You're a good man. You're a good man. Teddy Greenstein, the best. I appreciate it, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.
I love that, Steve. Anytime, my man. Have a great afternoon.